For Session Daily Updates, I'm Sarah Allen. The House floor session is anticipated to begin soon. Let's take a look at what's expected to be addressed before we join members gathering for session.
The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Shall we pray? This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. God, we come before you today with glad and grateful hearts. We thank you for our great nation and how you have blessed us in so many ways. We thank you for the freedom we enjoy because many men and women before us sacrificed in order that we may be free. We thank you for those in our military today who serve to preserve and protect these same freedoms. We pray for those who mourn the loss of a loved one who died while serving our country. Fill their emptiness and meet their every need in the coming days and years. I pray for each person in this room today. May they seek you for the wisdom to lead wisely. Give them keen minds as they wrestle with complex issues and problems. Help them to discern what is best and not get bogged down with things which in the long run don't matter. They serve to make a difference as they represent the men and women of Minnesota. So Lord, make their job a joy rather than a chore. I pray that you would bless their families and help those who are parents to have the wisdom needed to raise kids in this world very different from the world in which many of us grew up. Help us to see change as opportunity for growth and to help us do an even better job of taking care of one another. For those few in this room who are wrestling with a crisis at home, whether it be an aging parent or a wayward child or something else, would you grant them an extra measure of your grace and peace? Life gets very hard when something goes sideways on us. Thank you that you love us and you want to be our source of strength and hope. Help us when our faith is weak. Lord, our country was founded on your principles and your moral absolutes. Forgive us when we have abandoned them and gone our own way. Show us how to be one nation under God, in actions rather than just words. May the words of our pledge, recited by thousands of children in schools all over our country this morning, be even more resolute for us as their leaders. We need your guidance and humbly come before you. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Dr. Randall Berg from Calvary Christian Church, Hastings, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will take the roll. quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 89th session, 77th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Friday, April 1st, 2016.
If there's no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. Anything special with these? No. Just read the script.
Yeah.
There's a copy of this order of business on each member's desk. If there's no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail and the substitutions will be made. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business has been placed on each member's desk. If there's no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading, House File number 607.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 1582.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 2674.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3357.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File 3497.
Second reading. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading, Senate File number 2614.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The chief clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 3795 through 3808.
First reading, House files 3795 through 3808. Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for today is House File 2613. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 2613, number 4 on the calendar for today, an act relating to health, the first engrossment.
I recognize the member from Dakota, Representative Peterson, to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 2613 is a first step to building a system for heart attack patients across Minnesota. A STEMI is the most deadly type of coronary artery blockage and heart attack. When someone has a STEMI, time is critical. They need immediate medical attention, and so a STEMI system is a coordinated and standardized approach to speed up all parts of their medical care. This bill sets up a similar system to the Minnesota stroke system. The stroke system is a voluntary program that has attracted over 80 hospitals. No hospital is required to participate or change their approach to cardiac care at all. Hospitals that choose to get accredited nationally can choose to apply for MDH at the state level designation. It also requires EMS services to have current protocols for treating STEMI patients. And this is fully supported by the Minnesota Ambulance Association. The American Heart Association has invested $6 million into the infrastructure need for a Minnesota STEMI system, and there is no fiscal cost to the state or fiscal impact. This bill has huge bipartisan support, and it passed unanimously out the committee, and I urge every member to vote green. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 2613.
Third reading. Discussion on House File 2613. The member from Nicollet, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and thank you, Representative Peterson. This is a good bill. Last year, or a couple of years ago, we were able to establish the protocols for heart attacks, extending this to strokes. Just makes good sense, especially out in the countryside. What the deal is, I just want to compliment the American Heart Association, who's really been working on this. I sit on the Rural Health Advisory Commission, This is making life safer for a lot of our neighbors, and thanks for bringing this forward. I encourage a yes vote.
Any further discussion on the bill? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll.
Mr. Speaker.
Clark votes aye. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is House File 3101. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 3101, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to military veterans.
I recognize the bill author, the member from Aiken, Representative Lueck, to report the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, the bill before us, House File 3101, makes some technical changes to statute. What we have is a set of outdated language in the commissioner's duties, and so this simply straightens that out and removes that. We're doing this on behalf of Commissioner Shalato and the governor. This has got support by the administration and simply cleans up some technical language, makes no changes to any programs or anything like that, and I would urge your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 3101.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The member from Anoka, Representative Newton.
Mr. Speaker and members, this is a good bill and I urge your support.
Any further discussion on House File 3101? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is House File 2956. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 2956, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to local government.
I recognize the bill author, the member from Dakota, Representative Koznick, to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm pleased to offer this bill in support of the Dakota County Community Development Agency. And this bill provides for a public housing resident to serve as an 8th at-large member of the agency to meet a federal requirement. And the Dakota County CDA manages over 2,700 housing units, affordable workforce and senior-based housing in Dakota County, with just over 300 of those units being federally funded housing units. And the CDA administers the Housing Choice Voucher, also known as Section 8 Rental Assistance Program, for the entire county, serving over 2,500 households. The CDA, as a public housing authority under federal law, is also required by the Department of Housing and Urban Development to have a resident of a federally funded public housing unit appointed to the CDA board. This member is authorized to participate and vote on issues related only to the federally funded units. And the CDA's enabling statute, Minnesota Statute 383D, establishes the 7-member board, and the members of the CDA board are the same members as the Dakota County Board of Commissioners. So Chapter 383D must therefore be amended to allow for the appointment of the resident member required as federal law. So in support of affordable workforce and senior housing in Dakota County, I urge members to vote green.
The member from Dakota, Representative Hansen. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 2956.
Third reading. Now further discussion. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is a good idea to add a citizen member as well as it being required by federal laws. So I'd encourage support.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there's no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail.
Fenton moved that House File number 2820, now on the General Register, be referred to the Committee on Taxes.
The member from Washington, Representative Fenton, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House File 2820 is Washington County Housing and Redevelopment Agency moving to a Community Development Agency. Needs to be referred to the Committee on Taxes. I've talked to the chairman and he is willing to accept it. Thank you.
Any discussion on the Fenton motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the Fenton motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Pinto moves that House File number 3177 be recalled from the Committee on Health and Human Services Reform and be re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services Finance.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House File 3177 funds study of disparities in prenatal care through the Minnesota Department of Health. I've connected with the chairs of both committees, and they are agreeable to the change, and this bill will be re-referred to Health and Human Services Finance. Thank you.
Any discussion on the Pinto motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the Pinto motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Pinto moved that House File number 3236 be recalled from the Committee on Health and Human Services Reform and be re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services Finance.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, too, Mr. Speaker, relates to funding for prenatal care. This bill would fund Safe Sleep baby boxes. Again, I've connected with the chairs of both committees, and they're agreeable to the re-referral from Health and Human Services Reform to Health and Human Services Finance. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the Pinto motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the Pinto motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Anderson P. moves that House File number 3469, now on the General Register, be re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, that is my motion. The bill 3469 is known as Laura's Law. It came back with a slight fiscal note, hence the reason for it to be re-referred back to the Committee on Ways and Means. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Any discussion to the Anderson motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the Anderson motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Zerwas moves that House File number 3482, now on the General Register, be re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
I recognize the member from Sherburne, Representative Zerwas, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 3482 is a bill extending statute of limitations for identity theft, and we had a late-breaking fiscal note. So off to Ways and Means we go.
Discussion on the Zerwas motion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the Zerwas motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Lesh moved that House File number 3501, now on the General Register, be re-referred to the Committee on Civil Law and Data Practices.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Lesh, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill 3501, there was an amendment that was added that seeks to bypass a pending Court of Appeals case whereby Cliffs is currently litigating an issue on ferrous mining. And because that this would undo the current civil court case in the interest of Cliffs and changes the standard by who would be entitled to a hearing and who would have to go to the Court of Appeals, it is squarely within the province of civil law. And so I'd ask that members support the provision that this go to civil law so we can ask about that court case.
The member from Dakota, Representative McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and Representative Lesh. Thank you for bringing that forward. It's actually a provision from your side of the aisle, and if you guys work it out and that you need it to go there, we'll take it out of the bill when it comes up on the floor. So I think Representative Lesh is right that it would need to go to civil law if it stayed in the bill. So when the bill comes up, we'll just have an amendment that you and I can author together to remove that article. Does that work?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to clarify from Representative McNamara what he said. So because the provision is a DFL amendment, what you're saying is if we insist on proceeding with Representative Lesh's motion and actually follow the procedure, your response as the majority is to say we will refuse to move forward on that issue at all. That's what I mean. You're basically threatening our side of the aisle and trying to bully us into taking a particular action, which is not uncommon this year, I would say, members. But I think that's what I just heard Representative McNamara say.
Representative McNamara.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's a long ways, and members, from what I said. I was clarifying that the amendment got added in committee by one of Representative Lesch's colleagues. It wasn't my issue. I don't think it's necessary, and I was willing to support an amendment to delete that provision. I thought that's what I said, and I'm not sure what you just said, Representative Thiessen, but I think after looking at the amendment, Representative Lesch makes a good point that if Article 2 stayed in, it would need to go to civil law. Article 1, I believe it doesn't need to go to civil law over Article 1, so I'm willing to remove Article 2.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Metza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is an issue that should go through the process, and I would support the Lesch proposal of having it go to civil law. We can take up this issue in the future.
Any further discussion on the Lesch motion?
Mr. Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Yaruso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also support the Lesch motion. The item that was added as an amendment was significantly outside the scope of the original bill. And as we've heard, and the piece that was added definitely does belong in civil law. Thank you.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be glad to hear the bill in civil law.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the Lesch motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.
Hamilton moved that House File number 3325 be recalled from the Committee on Civil Law and Data Practices and be re-referred to the Committee on Transportation Policy and Finance.
The member from Cottonwood, Representative Hamilton, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the autonomous vehicle task force bill. It's currently in civil law. We're asking it goes over to transportation. Working very, very closely with Representative Isaacson on this bill as well. Talked to both the authors and asked for your support.
Any discussion on the Hamilton motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the Hamilton motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. Announcements. Any announcements? The member from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. DFL members of the Environment Finance Committee will meet in the retiring room after session.
Any further announcements? The member from Hennepin, Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I move that when the House adjourned today, it adjourns until 12:15 p.m. Wednesday, April 6th, 2016.
Representative Pepin moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 12:15 p.m. Wednesday, April 6th, 2016. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. Representative Pepin.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Pepin moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails and the House stands adjourned until 12:15 p.m. on Wednesday, April 6th, 2016.